I had recorded a version of this video last year where I was talking about the state of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but before I could edit that video, the Jonathan Majors verdict came out, and that kind of changed everything I was saying in that video. So yeah, I kind of scrapped the idea. And thank God I'm recording this later than I actually planned, because there have been big news coming out of San Diego Comic-Con, out of Hall H, like massive news. And if I recorded this any earlier, I would have had to scrap that video too, just so I can include these latest updates that have just come out. So yeah, Deadpool and Wolverine just released recently, and it is on course to being a massive, roaring success. And the big question before this movie released was, would this be the film to jumpstart the MCU once again? Would this be the film to bring the MCU back on course? And the answer is yes, in a financial sense, because financially this movie is doing incredibly well already, and it will most definitely be the highest grossing rated R film ever. But as for the overarching storyline of the MCU, well, not really, because this Deadpool movie kind of feels like its own self-contained thing. Yes, it has elements from the MCU, such as the TVA, but more than not, it is a story about Fox. So, spoiler warning for those who have not seen Deadpool and Wolverine, please go and watch that movie first before coming back to this video. So yeah, this movie is a big send-off to the Fox slate of movies. Not really the X-Men per se, but definitely the other movies, because it featured cameos from characters that I wasn't really expecting them to bring in to this movie. Like, first of all, we get the Chris Evans cameo, and the whole cinema was hyped for him to say the words, and when he went "flame on," like everybody laughed. As well as some of the other cameos, Elektra, when she was there, I was like, oh my god. Like, you don't really expect her to show up. Like, I was never expecting her to show up. Then Wesley Snipes back as Blade. Again, unexpected cameos, and they did not spoil these cameos in marketing. And finally, the last cameo, which definitely nobody in their right mind would have expected this cameo to show up, would be Channing Tatum's Gambit. And kind of becomes a running joke in that movie, because he doesn't know how or where he was born, because he doesn't really have an origin story, since that movie will never see the light of day. And also his accent's all over the place, because again, this character is not realized, so he's not been fully developed yet, so we don't really know what kind of accent he would have actually had in that hypothetical Gambit movie that was supposed to come out. But like I said in my review, with these cameo characters, they showed these characters respect. Yes, they made jokes using those characters, but they treated those characters with more respect than something like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, giving them an opportunity to actually shine without just killing them off instantly, which would have been really, really depressing, especially because they also brought back Daphne Keene's X-23, and to have her just die in this movie would have been hella depressing. But no, they treated her character, they treated all these cameo characters with respect, except for Chris Evans' Johnny Storm. But that is more towards comedic effect, and I feel like it works. So yeah, this movie is definitely more of a send-off for Fox's Marvel movies, more than it is a setup for the future of the MCU. But what it does show is that if you put the right people in the right places, the right characters, the right actors with the right story, fans still want to watch these movies. First, you got to cut down on the content you're making, because I feel like, and I think this is caused more by Disney than what Marvel actually want, is Disney demanding a constant flow of projects so that people are just cued into the MCU throughout the year, and that can lead to a lot of fatigue. Previously, they just did 3 movies a year, so you just had to be tuned in 3 times a year. and each project kind of built on top of each other, and they all led towards the Infinity Saga, the ending that we got for the Infinity Saga, and it felt like something is there, right? We're approaching something. Whereas ever since Disney Plus became a thing, I feel like Disney has been demanding more and more and more from Marvel and requiring fans to watch more and more and more and more of their shows, and it just led to a lot of fatigue, especially because a lot of these shows were either mediocre or sometimes plain bad. That, and adding on the situation surrounding Jonathan Majors, it left the MCU in kind of a low spot, which the Deadpool and Wolverine movie literally poked fun at. And yeah, it was kind of a low spot because what they did incredibly well with the Infinity Saga, even though not every film in that saga is a good film, is that they kept audiences coming back by promising something at the end which we can expect, which was Thanos. And that was supposed to be Kang for this multiverse saga, but after recent news, it seems like Kang will no longer be a thing. And that's kind of depressing for me because it means the time we put into watching movies and Disney Plus shows for Phase 4 and Phase 5 is now practically meaningless. So if you haven't heard, Avengers The Kang Dynasty has been scrapped. Marvel are not recasting Kang, and instead they are going with Avengers Doomsday, and they are bringing in Doctor Doom pretty early into the MCU, I would say, because this feels like a really big course correction for the MCU. It feels like Marvel know that they've kind of lost their way with this, and it feels like they needed to pull away from the entire Kang thing because I guess for them it wasn't working out, coupled with Jonathan Majors' conviction. You know, for me personally, I would have preferred them to recast Kang, because for a multiversal being like Kang, you just can cast another actor in the role and people would still follow. But they decided to scrap it completely, and like I said, that annoys me because it feels like the investment, the time investment that we put in following this Phase 4 and Phase 5 of the MCU is kind of wasted. We have to kind of scrap a bunch of that and now redirect towards Doctor Doom. And on top of that, they've also announced Robert Downey Jr. to play Doctor Doom, which, look, man, it just reeks of desperation, because not only that, Joe and Anthony Russo are also back as directors for Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret War, and it feels like Marvel are starting to play the hits at this point. Like, this is a very aggressive course correction. They've scrapped the entire Kang storyline, so I guess this is no longer the multiverse saga. I have no idea what saga this is anymore. Is it the Doom saga? Is it the Secret War saga? Who knows at this point? But it's an aggressive course correction, and it's like desperation. It feels like desperation. Bringing back an actor we loved in a different role. Like, it is definitely different from bringing back Chris Evans in Deadpool and Wolverine, where it's just a cameo and a throwback to his time as Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four, and it really doesn't have any greater consequence on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, whereas casting Robert Downey Jr. as Doom is massive because he is now going to have to play the big bad going forward. And based on the reaction in Hall H, like, everybody was cheering, everybody was hyped, but I also know that a lot of fans were disappointed because they feel that desperation, like, oh, you're going back to the RDJ well just to get us back in seats. Like, we expected someone else for Doom. And I have one or two people that I follow that say Doom is a Oscar caliber villain, and Robert Downey Jr. is not going to whip his way through, you know, Doctor Doom, and he's gonna ruin it. Like, but you know, just to remind you, Robert Downey Jr. is now an Oscar-winning actor. He can pull off serious, right? But still, it does reek of desperation. I have faith in the Russo brothers and faith in Robert Downey Jr., but at this point, I still can't see Marvel's direction. even with Kang, I really couldn't see what direction Marvel were going in. All we knew to expect was a multiversal war, but there wasn't clear direction. And even now, there isn't clear direction. So while I am looking forward towards what could happen in the MCU, I am staying very, very cautious. And I think that's the mood around a lot of fans. They're excited to see Robert Downey Jr. back, but you know, this sense of desperation is keeping them just not building hype and expectation too much. Also, another thing I want to add is they still haven't really brought mutants into the fold. Like, there is a Fantastic Four movie coming up, but nothing really related to the X-Men. Like, the only X-Men project we've really had so far is X-Men 97, which fans apparently loved. I still haven't watched it, but there's no live action X-Men project as of now, Deadpool aside. And they really haven't folded the X-Men into the MCU yet. Yes, there was the post-credit scene of the Marvels, but also there was Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and none of that really brought the mutants into the MCU. Now, Secret Wars might do that, but that's a while away. So who knows what the plan is for the mutants. Hopefully they do them justice. Maybe the plan is to do the mutants phase after this whatever multiverse something saga that they're planning now, and hopefully they treat the characters with respect. Anyway, TLDR, Deadpool and Wolverine did not save the MCU in itself. Like, it's definitely gonna be a massive box office hit, but it's not really gonna save the overarching storyline of the MCU. Now we've got Doom, and Avengers 5 is now Avengers Doomsday, and Robert Downey Jr. is playing Victor Von Doom. He's playing Doctor Doom. So a lot has changed in this past few days. So yeah, I'm kind of cautiously looking forward to what might come from this. I'm gonna let Kevin Feige cook. I just hope Disney doesn't force Marvel to spaff out content just to keep us engaged. You know, reduce the Disney Plus series. Make sure they have either no impact in the greater MCU and it's just a fun time, something like What If, or if they're gonna have an impact, they're really good, and do the same with your movies as well. And that's what I'm looking forward to. I feel like since that announcement, it is now a fresh slate for the MCU again to bring fans back. And yeah, we'll see what happens with that. So those are my spoilery thoughts on Deadpool and Wolverine, as well as my thoughts on the latest announcements regarding the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Please let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.